I'm sorry, Fireman what?
Regina Kirkland. I wanted to say thank you because I'm the second female juvenile lifer to be released in May.
Oh. Those cases, I have to tell you, were gut-wrenching and heart-wrenching and very difficult to do. What she's talking about is it's very difficult to go into, but we really spent a lot of time on these cases. We had, I think, 150-something cases. And I would love to speak with you after this, to talk with you further.
Absolutely. But I have a question.
Mhm.
I'm aware that a lot of the juvenile lifers in Wayne County didn't get the same opportunity as I did to serve a term of years, and that you are 60 life again. I would like to call on your heartstrings to give these kids, because as you can see, we're not the same that we were when we were kids.
Yeah.
And I feel like every child that has went away under the age of 18 deserves another chance. I feel like life shouldn't be given to them again. It's a slow death.
Well, the Supreme Court agrees with you. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Supreme Court agrees with you. And what she's talking about, if I can try to summarize a very complicated situation very quickly. The United States Supreme Court said that it was cruel and unusual punishment, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, he's the investigative unit, by the way, to keep in prison for their natural life people that were convicted under the age of 17, oh, the age of 18. One thing that people don't realize, one of the reasons why Wayne County has so many, because the age of majority in Michigan is 17. So even the people that we convicted of first-degree murder lawfully as an adult at 17, they counted in those numbers. We were given a very short period of time to go through all these cases, and one of the reasons why Wayne County's numbers were so high because of that age 17. The majority of our cases were people that were convicted under the age of 17. And you know, Bob is here, and one thing that we always did when we charged someone with first-degree murder that was under the age of 17, we almost universally, maybe one or two cases over the years, offered them a plea of murder in the second degree for the very reasons that the Supreme Court talked about in their opinion. We can't make people take a plea. We can't make them do it. And we had under our administration, I think we probably had about 5 or 6 a year, Bob, that we had about 5 or 6 a year.
Correct.
5 or 6 juveniles a year that were charged with first-degree murder. And almost universally, like I said, we offered them second degree for that very reason. Now, there were some that chose not to take it, and the jury came back and convicted them of first-degree murder. And so we looked at these cases very seriously. We had a whole system that was set. And I'm saying all this because I want you to understand we did not take these decisions lightly. And we had over 85 of those cases where we agreed for life, for a term of years. So the majority of our cases, we had a term of years, but there are some that were so egregious, because we're so egregious and so terrible that we could not agree. There were cases where a 9-month-old baby was pummeled to death. We had cases where they were killed, the body parts were spread all over campus. So there are a few cases we just couldn't, in good conscience, say. And we had to go back to all these families, as you know, and tell them, yeah, your loved one is deceased, and they're supposed to spend their natural life in prison, but oh, the law's changed, and now we have to look at them. And we did that because we had to. But we took a very serious look. We investigated almost we went through all the materials, the trial materials in all those cases. We had a 9-member committee that then, and that prosecutor made a recommendation. We had a 9-member committee that then voted, and Jerry and some other people were on that committee, that to decide whether we were going to ask for a continued life in prison without parole or a term of years. And like I said, the majority of those cases, even the cases now, where we said, because we've done most of the cases and we sentenced most of the people, as you know, for a term of years. So some of them are out. Some people hadn't served a long period of time, so we said, well, you'll now do 30 years instead, or 25 years instead. And maybe they've done 8 years, so they're still in. And then we also, it's fluid. So once we're looking at these cases where we've said we want them to remain in prison for their natural life because of the combination, a poor prison performance, 100 misconducts in prisons, things psychological. We had one of our cases where the young man who's now older couldn't even be contained in the Michigan correctional system. They had to send him to another state because he was so violent. So cases like that, we said no term of years. So again, but even on some of the cases, there are about 5 or 10 where we said, natural life should continue, and we're re-looking at those, and we've changed our minds about those cases. So it's a fluid process. We've done more cases in a more timely manner than any place else in the country. Some of my colleagues across the state have taken the position that they have 30 cases. We're not asking for term of use for any of them. So even though we get a lot of the press because we have so many, we've been very progressive and very aggressive in looking at those cases and even willing to set new information about that case up until the time that we're in court. So we've taken it very seriously.
And I thank you for that. I just feel like they deserve a hard look.
And we are doing that.
Ms. Burton, excuse me.
Yeah.
Not the circumstances of the case, because if you look at the circumstances, every last one of them deserves the first degree murder charge. What we're saying is that federally, they said it's unconstitutional and it's totally unusual for them to be sentenced to die in prison. I'm just asking, because you have the biggest county in Wayne County, you can lead the charge in really taking these kids on an individual basis, not their cases, but the overall advancement in all the Miller factors and give them a second chance.
Yeah, we are. We're doing that. We are doing that. It's, like I say, it's continuous. We didn't make a decision initially and say that's our decision forever. Again, it's very fluid. And once we get more information, sometimes from the defense attorneys, sometimes from psychologists, sometimes we're reversing our opinions. So we are taking it very seriously. We're not cavalier about this at all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, how you doing?
Hi, I'm fine.
I wanted to know where you plan on running for office
Am I planning on running for office?
to re-time here.
Oh, I'm running for re-election this year.
Re-election, I'm sorry.
I'm up for re-election this year, yes.
Okay, and I also want to know, besides, being tough on crime, what else do you plan on doing?
Well, we've talked about a lot of the things today that we've done. Our alternatives to incarceration, both in the adult and juvenile court. We had, in total, a few years ago, about 15 different diversion programs. Truancy, and that's to divert people from going to prison. That's what diversion is. And sometimes divert them from having a crime. So we've talked about a lot of those programs today. We are taking another serious look at some of our mental health issues that we have, some of our defendants and children with mental health issues. We have drug court, sobriety court, and all the things we've talked about. So those are all alternatives to incarceration.
And I also want to know,
Let me also just also say, we talked about Talk It Out today, and one of the things that I would like to see is an expansion of that. We have, so the cases that we do put into the system, for more serious cases, for example, are carjackings, and obviously that person has to go through the system. And what I'm looking at the end of probation or at the end of any kind of incarceration, what I would like to do is have a kind of a diversion program at the end. So if the victim is a victim of carjacking, for example, we hope to persuade some of our victims to sit down and talk to the young man or the young woman, that's a juvenile, that committed this crime, so they can explain what they had to go through as a result. And we have the ones we are keeping out of the system, but the ones that actually have to go into the system because the crime is so serious. We also want them to get a flavor of what they've done as well. So we're hoping to put a program in place later on. Don't have it yet. We'll talk it out first, where we can persuade the victim from coming in to come in and say, as a result of the carjacking, you took my car. I lost my job because I couldn't get to work. And all kinds of things. And to hopefully get that youth not to reoffend and go back into a life of crime. So there are all kinds of innovative things that we're looking at, but again, one thing at a time, because all these things have to be funded.
right, I understand. And I have one more question. As far as wrongful conviction, I think her name is Val.
Yes.
She, said something about maintaining your innocence. I wanted to elaborate on that because how do you maintain your innocence if you're incarcerated already? Like, what is the, what does that entail? Like, because, they're incarcerated, so how are they able to, get evidence and things of that to present it to you?
So we don't require people to present evidence to us. We require that, in order to open an investigation, that they have to be maintaining their innocence. So like I said, if someone says, I was sentenced to 20 to 30 years and that's too long for what I did, we're not gonna take a look at a case like that. So that the bottom line is, if someone says, I did not commit this crime, I was not involved in this crime in any way, and I want you to relook at my case. Sometimes people do have new evidence, right? Sometimes people say, please test my DNA. It was tested 20 years ago, and I'm telling you, with new testing, you're gonna find that it wasn't me. So sometimes they just have an idea of what might help them. Sometimes truly innocent people have, they have no idea what happened. They just know they didn't do it. So we're not requiring people to come forward and say, here's the proof of my innocence. We're just requiring that they have had no involvement in a crime at all.
Okay, we have to be out of here at 9 o'clock. I want to thank you. Real quick questions we can answer, but we have to be out. We have